Tonight, of course, we're talking about money. I know, we get so excited about money. My parents were always like really big on making sure we understood money and budgeting, and they were very sneaky how they did it. All throughout our lives, they would start, whether it was time to go school clothes shopping, and they would give us a very, very specific budget. And so if we wanted to go buy one really expensive pair of jeans, that's all we had to wear for the entire year, was one very expensive pair of jeans. Or we could choose several lesser expensive ones. So it was just right away from the word go, they were always like, be thinking about money and how you spend it. And it carried right up until I graduated college, and probably continues today, I imagine. But when I graduated college, they, like many good parents do, they lavished gifts on me, one of which was a book on financial planning. And as any good child who has now graduated with their undergrad, who knows everything, oh, thank you, put it to the side. And there it sat, and I moved a couple different times, and it was probably about a year, maybe 2 years later, my brother-in-law, his name is Blair, he says, hey, Todd, when you graduated, your parents gave you a book on finances, right? And I said, yeah. Oh, man, I really been wanting to kind of brush up on things. Could I borrow that book? And I thought, that's kind of a strange thing. Blair, you're not really like a big reader, and I just don't see like what's up? And he starts laughing. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you don't know, do you? I said, no, what? He said, well, they give the same book to your sister and same book to me, and in the pages, there's a $100 bill. And so he was just wanting to swipe my copy, to swipe the money, but honesty got the best of him. And so the things we need to learn tonight, never trust your brother-in-law when they're looking to borrow your financial books, okay? Just keep that. That's all you need to know. We should pray and go home. No. So what we're going to basically do here, we want to make sure before we dive into anything else that we understand this. We're going to go quickly. You'll see this a whole bunch of times, but we need to make sure that we know our identity. We need to know what it's rooted in. And what is a biblical perspective when God looks, and what does he see? Is he impressed with our banking account? Is he impressed with our job? Is he impressed with all sorts of things that we pour a lot of energy and effort into, that we say, this is who I am, I identify myself this way? Or does he look at things slightly different? And we looked at this last week, and this is like a tower aerial view kind of looking down. And it's not perfect all the way through, but it helps me think through things. But let's dive into Genesis chapter 1, 26 and 27, because we look at it just about every week.
Then God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them.
Awesome, thank you. He created him in his image, in his image, in his image. And so when he looks at us and our identity, he's thrilled. We're set apart from everything else because of the image of God dwells in us. And then as a Christian, man, the third person of the Trinity comes and dwells in us. Our whole new identity is fully, the main thing that we are is we are a new creation in Christ at the very foundation. And so that's the aerial view. We looked at the side. So you'd have your God's image would be the base and the foundation, and then you build up on that. But as things would have, God gives us these parameters as well, and there's some wiggle room in some of these things. And so you can move over here and kind of move over here, and some of them you can get all the way out of bounds. But basically what he's done is said, hey, when you start moving out of bounds, my desire is to always be at work at you to move you back into this. Romans tells us that the Spirit that's at work in us, he's working to conform us onto the image of his Son. He's at work in all of us. None of you, myself first and foremost included, has arrived yet. There's still conforming work that has to happen in me. And as I was looking at finances, man, this is just, it's cutting me to the quick. So this goes on, but what happens often is our society, the world around us says, you know what? No, at the very foundation of who you are, it's not really God's image. No, who you are, it's something else. They'll take some other characteristic that, yeah, it kind of relates to who you are, but it's not who you are big time. And so they move that down and they take money and say, in this example, it's money, and they move it to the bottom. And all of a sudden now we start seeing a little less stable foundation. And then we begin to also move those things around as money, our perception of that moves outside of God's bounds. Things become very unstable, and then we come and we talk, and we have a small group conversation about money, and you get really silent, and you lock your jaw. You're like, how dare they talk about spending? It's mine! It's all mine! And then you're like, wow, Michael's at your table and he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ask you a question. But it's just because we have things all out of whack. We need to remember, first and foremost, that your identity is not how much money you have. It's not found in any of these things. Your main identity is found in the God's image, that you are a new creation in Christ. That's the big time identifying mark of who you are. And that is tremendous. It truly is tremendous, because when we mess up in these areas, it doesn't mean that our lives totally fall apart. I'm very, very thankful. So here is money. We're going to cover 3 things. Is money evil? Whose money is it? And what are some healthy money principles? Challenging thing to do, because we're just going to hit the tip of the very large iceberg, because it's a huge topic. But I want us to kind of walk through and have a better understanding about money, how it works in our lives, and really what it does. And let me just stop here, because I truly believe that money is a very effective tool that reveals our heart. I believe that money is an effective tool that reveals what we worship. And I hate it, because I'm not perfect. And there's no hiding. When I look to see what is valuable to me, I go and I look at the bank statements and I begin to look to see how I use money. And I see real quick what's most important to me. I see really quick what I worship. And it's not always really comfortable. And side note, I just want you to know, I'm not just hoping to pass on some information. Hopefully what we'll do as we're coming through here, we might be willing to feel uncomfortable, feel convicted if there are areas that are out of whack. And as he begins to apply pressure, or that this is out of alignment, you need to kind of nudge you towards the middle in this area. As that happens and you're tempted to lock your jaw and say, no, instead you kind of pause for just a brief moment and say, you know what you're doing, God, okay, I trust you. And as you look and you investigate further on your own, you're like, yes, this is an area that I definitely need to come in alignment. Hopefully you say yes to that. And hopefully you change. Wouldn't that be cool if December rolls around and you're not the same person you are right now, that you're even more in love with Jesus Christ? Wouldn't it be cool if December rolls around and you're even a better, brighter light? Wouldn't that be cool? But it only happens if we move from like, oh, that's very nice, Todd. That's good for you and very interesting, but personally. Like, it only happens if we're just like, okay, God, I am here. I'm laid open and bare before you. Go ahead and cut, even if it hurts. So let's dive in here. First thing, is money evil? 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10. This is why we're asking this question, because many times people misquote this verse. And, Grace has some sassiness going on over there. So 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10.
For the love of money.
Wait, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, for the love of money.
For the what?
For the love
Oh, okay,
of
go
money.
ahead.
For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evils. Is it? Oh, it goes on.
Yep,
okay,
it
sorry.
does. It's okay.
It is through this. We're going to start over.
Do that
The
again.
love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. It is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pangs.
Thank you. Well done. That's fine. It was fine. So we see right away that it's the love of money. We see right away it's not money itself is bad. I really, again, believe that money is an incredibly painfully honest tool that God can use to reveal your heart of what you worship. Like if we were to pull out our smartphones, pull up our bank statements, how many of us would be really excited to go ahead and pass it to the person on the left and say, you know what, you don't have a smartphone, Caleb. But how many would sit there and be like, I am so proud of how I spent every dollar and every dime. Look what I did. I'd be like, oh, I can't log in. I forgot my password. I mean, it's a great tool to see what we value a whole lot of. Thinking about this too, let's go to Matthew chapter 22, 36 through 40. Jesus is being asked a question here. What is the most important commandment of all?
Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? And he said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the great and foremost commandment. The second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend the whole law and the prophets.
Awesome. He's not saying the most important thing is love your money. No. Love the Lord your God with everything you have. No competing interests. And so when love your money, a lot of times what happens is we don't trust God very much, but we trust our money a whole lot. A lot of us exhibit a lot more faith in our money and our finances than we do in God himself. We may not come home and like put our cash or our wallet or our credit card down and worship it, but our attitudes and how we go about life and how we hoard and how we hang on to things, we begin to see, man, I think I do a lot more trusting in finances than I do in God. Maybe it's just me, but I see that from time to time. That's why this is the evil. They're competing loves. The love of money. Man, no, you're supposed to love God with all your heart, not love money. And then you're supposed to love your brother, your neighbor, as yourself. Those are the two greatest things. So you're supposed to be using that tool of money to show these two things are true in your life. Is it? Does it? It does leave a paper trail, and that's why I don't like it. Let's go to Matthew 6:24. It's on the Sermon on the Mount. Oh, you moved very quickly, Aaron. That was incredible.
No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth.
Yeah, these two things. Wealth is not to be worshipped, it's a tool. It's not to be worshipped, it's a tool. And I started thinking about this, is you can't serve two masters. Let's look at this, how this works a little bit more. So, is money evil? No, the love of money actually is. But you have Christ, who you sit there and say, yes, you are my master. You are my Lord. You are my Savior. Or, on the other side, you have money that you say, no, I live for money. You don't say that out loud here because we wouldn't want that. But our actions, our true heart, it goes boom, boom, money, I need more, boom, boom, stuff, I need more, boom, boom. People will think I'm cooler if I'm wearing the new outfit, boom, boom. If I'm driving that sweet car, chicks will dig me, boom, boom. If I buy that bigger house, everybody else is going to envy me. Should I go on? That's putting yourself underneath and worshiping money. Over here is Christ. Now, what you worship, who's in control, influences everything. If Christ is your master and you're looking, how can I please you? How can I serve you? It's going to impact how you use your time, how you go about work, how you go about approaching and interacting with people, and how you use your possessions. On the other side, it's going to look radically different because money is not the same as Jesus Christ. Does it make sense? It's not totally rocket science, but a person who is worshiping money, boom, boom, with their heart, they may be really nice. And your car may be broken down, and you call them and say, man, I'm supposed to be in Nashville tomorrow, and I was supposed to drive there and I can't. Could I borrow your car to drive to Nashville? And the person who worships money will be like, boom, boom, oh, I'm so sorry. I couldn't be that inconvenienced because if I loaned it to you, at best you might return it with a full tank of gas, but you probably wouldn't even do that. You wouldn't even wash it. You wouldn't even factor in the miles of the tire that you wouldn't pay me enough on the way back. So no, I mean, I know that was really hard for you to ask, and I'll pray for you. As opposed to getting a phone call and be like, I don't want to, but hold on a second. Father, what do you want me to do? I love my wife. She stretches me in this area all the time. I'm amazed. Things will pop up and she'll be like, well, they needed a van, and so it's fine. They could just take the van. We don't need it for the next week. We'll get along just fine without it. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? How are we supposed to get the kids? They're like, hello, you have a car, Todd? You know, we can all fit in there. I'm like, I mean, I know, but once we get in there, the kids are smelly sometimes, and they'll come into my little Mini Cooper, and the odors and it won't be the same. My precious. You know? So I love the fact that I'm married to somebody who just continues to push and continues to encourage me to be somebody who is like, yes, Christ, you are Lord of everything and you have access to everything. You need a car, take the car. And you bring it back on empty with bugs all over the place, and oh, you door dinged as well, and you're just like, oh, my bad, but you don't even really maybe even acknowledge that. That I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, never again. Instead of next time that you ask that I come before the Lord and just say, it's not even mine, it's yours. What would you have me do? Is that our heart attitude? Do you see how there's a difference between these two? Now, that's fine and dandy. You know this, so you can't really serve both because both of their interests are not united. But we live in a world that kind of looks like this, don't we? We walk around and everywhere we look, from advertisements to other people's lives, we see them oftentimes being ruled by something other than God. Many times it is money and possessions, and we see how they act and how they behave, and we're kind of just here hanging out and seeing like, oh, yeah, no, I have the way, I have the truth, I have the life, and oh man, I just saw your post. You just got a new car. Oh, it's a new Mini Cooper, isn't it? It has leather interior. Oh, I would love to have leather interior if only. Oh, look at this one over here. Oh my goodness, they took a trip to Hawaii. They went to Disney. You know, we start seeing those things and we're like, it's so not fair. This isn't fair. How come I don't get that? We begin to look all around and now watch, it's a very subtle thing. Very subtle. See if you can see it. Did you see what just happened? Let me back it up. Watch the blue in the middle. Oops, hang on. There were blue in the middle. Now watch it. Here it goes again. It turns green. And so we start trying to act these ways. We try to fit these things and say, no, I'm not going to really worship you, but I'm going to go ahead and act like I do. And then there's this conflict because our new heart that just loves to do whatever God would will, we're suppressing it and saying, no, I'm going to act like everybody else. And so we live in a self-imposed poverty, and then usually you show up and you talk to Aaron and say, I just don't know much about this God if he's really real. I don't know if he really cares for me all that much. What would you do if you showed up and said, hey, Aaron, or hey, Todd, I'm really struggling. I don't think God is doing anything great in my life. I feel like he's so distant. And our first response was, can I see your checking statements and your credit card statements? We don't worry. But right away, we'd be like, whoa, what are you talking about? Well, I want to know what's ruling you. That's the best way of knowing what you worship. And the sad thing is, when we do this, we talked about this in our Relate series last year, but the sad thing is when we do this, we look like everybody else. And aren't we supposed to be light? The city on the hill? Aren't we supposed to be different? And yet, we try to act like everybody else, and everybody else looks and says, well, you're just like me, so why would I want anything to do with this Jesus guy? And you're sitting there trying to look like everybody else, and it's just not working, and you end up just going, grrr, it doesn't work. It's a big deal. We are to be different in every area of our life, including how we spend money. So is money evil? No, it's the love of money is. Desiring. It's an idol. Look at that God. He desires all of our love and all of our affection. That's why the love of money pulls us apart. Make sense? If you really want to, if you're feeling really, not quite convicted enough, when we leave, go and read 1 Timothy 6. Just back up a couple verses when it talks about hey, if we have food and shelter, we're content. Is that true of you? If you just have food and there's some protection, you either have a place to live or you've got clothing, you're content. Yeah, God is good. Or are you like, what? No, I want the mini with the leather, and the navigation system would be great. And the keyless system that I don't actually have to put a key in the dashboard, it just stays in my pocket. So I just push the button. Then I'm really going to be living this. Side note, because I just want to share this, and these side notes are always kind of fun and embarrassing. Anyway, when I got out of college, I thought, you know what? I'm out of college, and I ignored the book that my parents gave me, didn't read it. I was like, you know what I need? I think I want a little Honda Del Sol. Get rid of this Pontiac Sunbird Turbo. It's so like college. And so I negotiated all over the place, and I was living in Michigan, but I found the car that I wanted, a little Honda Del Sol. It's a two-seater. The back window rolls down, and you can, when you drive on a fall night, you can hear the leaves that you're going over because everything is just so quiet. And it's a hardtop convertible. You can take that off, put it in the trunk. There's a lot of trunk space back there. Man, I was so excited. And so negotiated over the phone. My parents lived in Memphis. I bought the car. They drove it to St. Louis. I flew into St. Louis. I'm like, this is it. Yes. I have arrived. And I have a picture. I should have brought it, but I got to see if I can find it. I got my leather coat on. I'm leaning against it like, yeah, I'm it. And so I get into the car. I'm like, well, Mom, Dad, we'll see ya. Thanks for bringing up, my identity here. And I start driving. Okay, so as I'm driving, this is now the first time that I've been in debt over a vehicle. And I'm driving like, this is really cool. But then I start noticing, this is the road that I've driven on many, many times, and it's still a road. And really, there's only room for two. Like, what if I want to haul something? Like, what if I want to bring more than one person? What do I do? I had to pull off to the side of the road where I had a mini panic attack. Like, what have I done? I've fallen into the trap of thinking if I got a new car to show, like, look, I'm out of college, I've got a job, I'm working in politics, like, yeah, I'm it. And as I moved my identity to a vehicle, it led to a big old panic attack. I'm sure you never do the same thing. This is an area that's really touchy for me because I find myself so often, I want to run after those things, and God just has to really continually work and pull me back. So as we're going through, if you're ever offended by anything that I say, really, I'm just talking to me, and if it offends you, I'm so sorry that what's going on inside of me offends you. But maybe what happens inside of me may encourage you as well to be more of the new creation that God has made you to be. Money evil? No. The love and worship of it is. Well, whose money is it, really? Like, let's think about this. Like, it's my money. Mine. Let's look at a couple verses here, okay? As you're turning to Deuteronomy, it's in the Old Testament. We have to put this in context. Deuteronomy, it's Moses. Moses has led people out of Egypt. God told him to go and lead my people go. Let my people go. Pharaoh, oh baby. Let my people go. Ooh, yeah. Anyway, so he comes and he sings a song, and they march on out, and all these plagues happen, and then they come up to the Red Sea, and they're like, what's going to happen? And Moses is like, stand by and watch, and then God parts the sea, and they walk on out, and so they've been going all throughout the wilderness, and they're like, we're hungry, and he gives manna. We're thirsty, and he hits a rock, and water flows out. Their shoes, they don't wear out. People are wanting to attack them, and God protects them. There's all incredible things that are going on throughout this journey, and now they're coming right up to the promised land, the land that God has promised them, the land that God has promised them. They've been stubborn and rebellious the entire way, so that generation actually kind of, but then the second generation, as they're coming in just beforehand, Moses is like, here's the deal, gather around, I want to make sure you succeed when you go in there. I want to make sure that you understand it is God who is giving us this land. And so he begins to talk even more on this here in Deuteronomy chapter 8, 17 and 18.
Otherwise, you may say in your heart, my power and the strength of my hand made me this wealth. But you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who is giving you power to make wealth, that he may confirm his covenant which he swore to your fathers as it is this day.
How did they make wealth? It was what?
By God who gave it to them.
Yeah, God's power. Good job. That was a good paraphrase. That's awesome. Yeah. He's like, I'm the one doing all of this. It's me. It's not you. And I want you to remember that, because if you come in and you think, oh yeah, look at me, look at the power, you're going to become proud and you're going to forget me. And when you forget me, you're going to do some really dumb things. And when you do some really dumb things, that's going to require some action from me, corrective action. And I would so much rather enjoy life with you. So please, when you come in, remember all that you're coming into, this amazing wealth. It's not because of your great energies and efforts. It's because of me, and I'm giving that to you. It's really kind of a cool thing. It makes me think a lot of times that you talk to people and they're like, well, no, I'm a self-made person. Really? That's incredible. Tell me more about it. Like, how did you determine to be born now, at this point in history? How? How did you, tell me, how did you figure out when you were being knit together that you would have the IQ that you have? How did you do that? Oh, that work ethic that was instilled from the family. How did you choose which family to be born into? I could go on and on and on. You're right. This is all about you. No. We have a God who has put us together in an incredibly unique and incredibly amazing way. So all that we have really is only because of what he has done in us and through us. Oops, God gives. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 7. Now, this is New Testament, and let me just put a little bit of context, because sometimes I find that helps. Otherwise, you're just diving in, woo, and you're like, I don't know what's happening. So what's happening here, Paul is writing the Corinthians. It's not really a nice letter. They've been getting off on some wrong distractions, and there's been this argument between them saying, well, Paul is the one who presented the gospel to me, so we're pretty much better than you. And other people are here going, no, hello, Apollos presented to us, and so we are so much more superior than you. And so there's this conflict going back that their identity is found in something other than Christ. And so they're fighting about these things, and Paul is writing them saying, let me write you a little note. And so 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 7.
For who regards you as superior? What do you have that you did not receive?
Oh, could you read that again?
The first one or the second one?
The second sentence.
What do you have that you did not receive?
Well, Paul, that's very interesting, huh? I guess I didn't write to Paul and have him come to me. I didn't tell Apollos, hey, come here. They were led and they came to us. Maybe we were just given all of this. Maybe we just need to get along and realize our identity is in Christ and not on who was the one who presented the gospel message to us. Received. Everything that they have received. And then Psalm 24, verse 1, is just a really unique, kind of subtle verse. Let's see what that has to say here.
The Lord, excuse me. Whoops, wrong verse. We're moving. Oh, it's there. Okay. No. Oh, there it is. Okay. The earth is the Lord's and all it...
I'm sorry, I'm going to have you start over again because
course.
I was really slow on that.
Sure.
The what?
The earth
Okay, is whose?
is the Lord's.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Yes. The earth is the Lord's and all it contains.
Ah,
The world and those who dwell in it.
huh. The earth, the world is all the Lord's and all that it contains. None of this is us. It's all His. It's all His. Which is truly, truly, truly incredible. Let's move forward here. Whose money is it? It's all His. We're not going to look at these verses. I'm just going to walk you through because this is #FollowJesus. And it's very interesting, I find it, when Jesus, many times when He's teaching and he brings up money or possessions, He says, like in Matthew 21:33, it's this landowner who has this vineyard that he does everything. He prepares and it's wonderful, but then he entrusts it to others. But it's his vineyard. And then in Matthew 24:45, he's talking about his return, and he's talking about a sensible servant that has been put in charge of his household. Not the servant's household, but it's the master's household. The servant is just a caretaker, just a steward of it. He also then, when talking about the talents, and this one's just really kind of crazy because the master, for whatever reason, he gives one. Here you have more household. The servant is just a caretaker, just a steward of it. He also then, when talking about the talents, and this one's just really kind of crazy because the master, for whatever reason, he gives one. Here you have more, you have less, and you have less. And yet when we sit there and go like, well, he only got one, but that one is really, really valuable. And so we sit there, but it's not theirs, is it? He entrusted his possessions. He's the owner. He didn't relinquish that, but he has given a stewardship. He's saying, I am allowing you to have some responsibility and care over what is mine. It's very interesting. This is just how Jesus teaches. In Luke, when he's talking about the unrighteous steward, and it starts off that he gets called before the king, and the king was like, hey, give me an account of what you have done with my possessions. You've squandered my possessions. They're not yours. You've been a steward over them. Come and have you taken care of them the way that I want, because they're mine and they're not yours. It's very interesting to me as he is going through these examples after example after example when it comes to resources, that he's very, very clear that the people that he's getting on, you're not the owner, you're a steward. We are stewards of his resources, and we have got to know this. And I don't care if you have 50 cents that you are a steward of, or whether you have 50 million, or $1 trillion, whatever it is that he has entrusted his resources to. They're not yours. They're not mine. And honestly, I don't like that. I want it all for me, which if we were good Bible students, we could go back and look at Genesis 3, and we could begin to see that that was the big rebellion. It's not about God, it's about me. And so there's always this constant thing of wanting more and all of it being me. And we would study and we'd see like, oh, the flesh is alive and well in all of us. And so there's a battle that continually goes on and rages within of us. And so we sit there and we say, hey, it's all the Lord's and we're just good stewards of it. And we sit there and we nod our head and say, well, that's just so true, Todd. You just preach it. That's really, really nice. And then we go home and we just continue living exactly the same way. Never once stopping and going, you know what, God? Here are my finances. What do you want to do with actually your finances? God, I don't understand why you're entrusting me with this little, but I want to be faithful in this little. Or I don't understand why you entrust me with this much, but I want to be faithful in this much. Would you help me with that? Because it's yours, it's not mine. And so when somebody comes and says, hey, my car broke down, I need to be in Nashville, can I borrow your car? And you sit there and you're like, well, it's not, first off, it's not my car. What? You know, it's not really mine. I'm just kind of a steward of it. It's the Lord. So can we just pray about it for a moment? I just really want to make sure that I'm in line with what he would have me do. And I want to know what his heartbeat is towards you and towards things and how he would want that to be used. And is it okay? Could I just check in with him first? How many times do we do that? No, we're like, no, you might make it stinky and bring it back with empty gas. Whose money is it? We are stewards of his resources. And if we can get our minds and hearts around this, it changes everything. You're like, what do these things have to do? Kind of gross. Subway and a comb and a toothbrush, right? So driving my sweet Del Sol to work in Michigan, worked for a representative, and it was just a unique experience. So like the third day there, he sent me to Subway to go, his glamorous job, I know, right? Go to Subway and get his chicken breast sandwich. And so I went, it was new back then, that's how long it was. And so wait in line, get the chicken breast sandwich, come back and bring it to the sergeant at arms, and they run it in to where he is on the floor, and he calls up, hey, awesome. And you're like, oh, sweet. And then like 2 days later, he's like, hey, I want another one of those sandwiches. Will you go and get me one? And so I'm walking down, and as I'm walking down, I start thinking, wouldn't it be funny like if they ran out of chicken breasts? Like, what would I do? And I'm waiting in line, and I look, and I can see, like, there's 4 of them, like, doing the math, 3 of them, doing the math, 2 of them, 1 of them, and I'm like, one guy in front, I'm like, come on, look how many different sandwiches there are, but he orders it, and I'm like, well, certainly they have more in the back. Yeah, can I get a chicken breast? No, we don't have them, we're out. Oh, my goodness, what? Well, what do you want? I'm like, well, it's not, I don't know, it's not for me. I'm here for somebody else's order with somebody else's money. What would he want? And I was able to remember from my very first day what his order was, and so ordered that up and brought it back to the sergeant at arms. I'm like, there's no way I'm walking out on the floor to give it to him, because how this man was wired, he would go ahead and rip me a new one in front of everybody just to show that he was very powerful and I was not, and I couldn't get anything right. So I send it in, and I come upstairs to the offices, and I'm talking to my coworker. I'm like, we're waiting for it, and then and you can see, because they had caller ID, and you're like, oh, I know who it is. And I'm like, I'm not answering it, you answer it. And so he answers it, and he's like, oh, Todd, it's for you. And he just continues to just make me feel about this tall. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, they were out. No, whatever, they're out. And so he was very kind of a hard and exacting man at times. So much so, because now let's talk about the toothbrush and the comb. He came down and he forgot his toiletries. And he said, well, Todd, while you're out for lunch, could you just go ahead and pick me up? A toothbrush and a comb. Sure. Happy to help. Boom, 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 boom. I'm there in the store. I'm like, I don't know what toothbrush to get, because, man, he gets mad at everything here. And I know that while he is very wealthy, I know that he's very frugal. And so do I get him the Colgate one, or do I get him the CVS one? I'm not 100% certain. What's the price differential here? I just don't know, because if I get him the cheap one, when he come back, he's like, why are you getting me a cheap one? These bristles aren't right. But if I get him the expensive one, why are you spending so much money? And so I'm sitting there like, I don't know. It's not my money. I don't know. Okay, I'll go with this one. And then I'm like, oh, a brush, a comb. Like, how? It's a comb. It's a piece of plastic. And they only had one to choose from. So I get that. I come back and I present to him what I have done for him. And he's like, well, how much did all this cost? And it was like $5.13 or something like that. It's like, $5.13? Are you kidding me? And I'm like, wow, I'm really sorry. And he finally reached a point. I'm like, you know what? Just consider it a gift from me. Apparently I wasn't stewarding your resources the way that you would have them be steward. I mean, you know how much I make, and I know how much you make, and, it's fine. It definitely makes sense for me to suffer this loss. I'll just go and drive in my little Honda del Sol with the window down and soothe my soul. But the point is, both those examples, it was very stressful because I had to stop and think about, what does he want? If it was just me, I'd walk in and say, I like the blue one, it's pretty, and I like this one, it's great. I don't need a comb anymore, but then I had sweet hair. So, it'd be easy. Or you're out of the chicken breast, that's not, I'll have the Italian BMT, please. It'd be easy to do because I know me, but how well did I know him? And when it comes to the resources that are not ours, that we're just stewards, how well do we know him? How well do we know his heart? Are we stuck at Subway going, hubba, 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 hubba? Or are we like, I know him so well and I know his heartbeat so well that this is so easy to walk through life? You need a van? Take the van. Now, you're all going to call. I know. Todd, I need a van. I need a van. Talk to Aaron. Money is evil? No. Whose money is it? It's his. We are stewards. And now, I want to get in just really quick. We're going to try to fly through this. Just some healthy money principles. Okay? Just pretty straightforward here. What are they? Let's go. Clicker, work. There we go. 3 things. We need to know what's been entrusted to you. You have to know. To be able to manage things, you got to know first off what's been entrusted. 1 talent, 2 talents, 3 talents, 4 talents, 12 talents. You got to know. You got to know. Next thing you need to know the owner's heart. If you really want to manage his funds, his way, you have to know his heart. And the third thing is then just allocate the resources accordingly. It's not rocket science. But these 3 things, when you look at them, it comes into a word that most of us don't like. It comes to this big old thing called a budget. We don't really like that. Yes, thank you. And most of us are like, no. Because if I make a budget, it just will confine me. Some of us are like, if I make a budget, then I'll know. And if I know, then I have to make corrective orders. So as long as I just don't know what's happening, I can just keep going. I'm not accountable for anything because I can just we just don't know. And so let's just look here. We'll quickly through here. Create and follow a budget. Here is entrusted. What have you been entrusted with? This one's really, really, really easy. Very easy thing. You look at what is your income. There it is. That's what he has entrusted to you. If you're not sure how that does, you get a pay statement. This is not mine. And I think it's a sample one, although it has a guy's name on it. So I'm not really sure. But you'll see I've made the little box here so you can see, wow, when he comes home for however long this payment statement is for, he has $709.74 that God has entrusted to him. That's what he has. Makes sense? This is why a lot of us don't do budgeting, because we look and we're like, oh, baby, what did I was supposed to have $1,000 and you took $290? What's going on? I don't like that. There used to be an old McDonald's commercial and the son goes and has his first job at McDonald's and he gets his first paycheck and he's so excited. He comes to his mom and he's like, got my first paycheck, and he opens up. He's like, who's FICA? He's really mad. He wants to go fight FICA because they're taking some of his money, which is not his money. It's all God's money, right? McDonald's didn't catch that. But anyway, so this is what it is. What you've been entrusted with. This guy, $709.74. Small talent, big talent, doesn't matter how you look at that. Now he knows, or she knows, exactly what they've been entrusted with. Now they've got some boundaries coming through here. Now we get to know his heart. Just a few things to know here about him. We know that he's a giver. He gave his only son, that whoever would believe in him would not perish but have eternal life. We know that God's heart is just a giving heart, right? Because grace, he does everything. He lavishes it on you, and he doesn't ask to earn anything for salvation, that you just believe in his son. We have a God who is a giving God. Yeah? Yeah. We also know that he has boundaries. That's part of who he is. Remember in the garden when he created, when it was all good? Hey, it's all good, but there's a tree. Don't eat of it. There's some boundaries. All in here, you can play with all of these things. I want you to enjoy all of this freedom. And yet, I'm going to put a small boundary here, which is really just an opportunity for you to love me, because you were created to love me. You were created to be in a relationship with me. And so that's why I'm giving this boundary in here. So as you honor that, as you respect that, Every time you walk by, you are loving me, which is exactly what you were designed for. And isn't it good? Except for human nature, we look at those boundaries and say, well, no, it's repressive. And we just walk on up and see how close we can get to it. But we know he's a God of boundaries. We know he's a God of freedom. We know that he loves for us to, again, to enjoy. Eat of any of these trees that you want. Any of them. I'm not saying you have to only eat oranges over here, although there's a tangelo tree that is, if you've not had a tangelo, they're not in season right now, but they are fantastic. It's like eating, I don't even know, it's like a tangerine but bigger, and you bite in and it's just, delicious. I'll let you know when they're in season. But there might have been a tangelo tree, and he doesn't say you can only eat of that. He's like, well, have a tangelo, have an apple, have a banana. There's freedom here for choice. He's a God who rejoices in that. We know that he's a God who protects. We know that. We know that he is a God who desires to come in and rescue. We know that. These are part of his heart. And so as we look at these things, we look as a giver, charity work. When we look at these finances, I got $907 and some odd cents. I need to look, how am I going to allocate these things? I got to make sure that I want to steward the money well. What is God's heart like? Well, I know that he's a giver. I know that he has boundaries. And so maybe when I'm looking at boundaries, I have to look at like debt. Oh, wow, what is God's thought on debt? I don't know. We should study that some. That's a great thing to study. Man, he really excites of, I gave you the means of $907.79 or 76 cents. I forget what it was. It doesn't really matter because it's not my budget. But if it was my budget, every cent would matter. Those are the boundaries he set. And he's saying, live within these means. Freedom, man. Car, he's not saying everybody has to go get a Honda Del Sol. Although if he did, we'd all have fun with our little back windows down. But they don't make them anymore, so anyway. But you have freedom in choosing kind of what car you drive. Are you going to get a big old truck and just drive it around because that's what we do in this station and getting our whopping 13 miles to the gallon? Maybe that's what he has you do because all you want to do is help people and everybody wants a friend with a truck. Side note, if you have a truck, we'd love to have you come on Saturday because we need help. But maybe you just don't need that. Maybe your finances aren't in a place that allows you to fuel said truck, and maybe what you need to do is downsize into something that's a little bit smaller, more fuel economy. But the girls won't like it so much. It's okay. It's okay. Are you living for them or for him? Very simple thing. You look at the protector. We think about budgets. We got to be thinking about savings. We got to be thinking about the future, about insurance and about retirement, all these things, and you're looking at $907. Maybe it's a week, maybe it's every other week, and you're sitting there like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do this, but that's where it really becomes fun and really becomes hard, and this is why most people run away from budgeting. Because now you come to the third thing, which is the allocation of the funds, which is a line item time. And this is when you sit there and you start looking at, okay, line item here, giving, okay, obviously this would not be for them, I want to give $5,000 to the church. Christmas gifts? It's kind of weird. You start thinking about this. How much do you spend on your family for Christmas? And almost all the time, people are like, we don't think about it like Christmas is just a shocker. It's going to happen. We forget about it for 11 months of the year. And then we're like, oh, I want to bless my parents. I want to bless my friends. And we spend all this money on Christmas. And then in January, we're like, why not exercise some wisdom? Because we have a very wise God and think, you know what? Typically, I spend about this much. Or my means only allow me to spend this much. Yes, I would love to send my parents on a cruise. But my means don't make that possible for me. So I can either go into big time debt and like, Mom, Dad, look how much I love you. I violate everything that God wants me to do with my resources because they're mine, right? No, they're his. No, we look and we say, these are the boundaries I'm playing within. Well, so why not make a line item of Christmas gifts? And each month, save up just a little bit. Save up just a little bit more. And then when Christmas comes around, you're like, wow, this is really fun. This is great. I didn't have to go return all the gifts they got me to pay my credit card bill. This is incredible. Birthday gifts, same thing, rent, electric bill, your auto insurance, food, retirement, all those things. I mean, this guy's loaded, whoever this dude is. But anyway, that's the idea. You allocate the line items. Create and follow budget. What is your income? What is his heart? Make line items that make sense and fall in line with that. Pretty simple, isn't it? One of the reasons that this is really hard, money is a challenge for me. Really quick story, and then I think we have 3 slides left. But years ago in a galaxy far, far away, I left a job and went to Bible school. And I thought that I would go back into the business world afterwards. So after a year of not making any income but paying for school, I found that my resources were a little bit limited, but I still had some funds going on. Because I made a ton of money? No, because I, before that time, had gone back and read the book and began to look at my finances to live within my means and try to build up a savings and begin to think about things I wanted to do and what would be right with that. And so, but money began to dwindle down, but I had a job lined up in England. And so I was going to go over, it was going to be my first ministry job, but I had to wait for my passport to come in. That could be either 4 or 6 weeks. And I'm like, man, we're getting down to crunch time, but it would be better if I could just get a job. But nobody would hire me for like, well, how long are you going to be here, Todd? Well, I might be here for another 3 weeks, but it might be 5. I don't really know. No, I'm sorry, this job is too complex for you. I eat here all the time. I memorize the menu. I can do this. Trust me. No. Even the local car wash is a towel boy. We're like, no, because we don't know how long you're going to be here for. And so my bank account went, psh. And I remember the moment of walking into H-E-B on Blanco Road, just outside of 410 in San Antonio. And walking in and going, I'm really hungry, but I don't have any money. 0. And I remember like, all I had was like a loaf of bread and a small tub of country crock butter because it was on sale. And I couldn't afford that. I had to put it down. And I'm not an emotional guy, but I'm leaving the store crying. Because like, man, how much do I really trust God? You say you're a provider, and man, how come my passport's not here in 4 weeks? Why is it taking longer than 4 weeks? I thought you were a good God. And as I'm walking out, kids are like, Mommy, why is he crying? Just leave me alone. And for a while, I had to go with like, well, what can I sell? What can I sell? I was selling Christmas gifts that I had received. I was selling whatever I could to earn enough money to be able to eat a meal a day. I know what that is like. And I never want to go back there. I never want to put Aaron or my boys in that position. And so for me, my natural tendency is like, this is nice, and I'll do that so long as I have my death grip on some savings. And this is why it's been so convicting for me. Like, Todd, if I choose to like bring you down to almost a $0 level, will you still love me? And that's where I struggle. And I'm like, well, am I underneath the green or am I underneath the blue? There's always a great reason why we fight God on these things. I don't know what your financial backgrounds are. I don't know what your family was like, but I just want you to know, because a lot of times people don't realize that I do know what it's like to go without food. I do know what it's like to sit there and go like, I don't know how I'm supposed to pay rent. I don't know. And I'm too proud to ask for help. So when my sister has me over, they're like, wow, you ate 5 hamburgers. And I was really hungry. I haven't eaten for a week. I know. But it doesn't excuse me to say I'm going to park myself underneath the green. Live within your means, giving money and time. Maybe you sit there and you're like, I've done the numbers at the end of the month, Todd, by just covering my food. Like, I'm in the boat that you were there. I'm only able to really eat a meal a day. That's just where I am right now. Well, giving doesn't always have to be through finances. You might be able to have time that you can give. There's a lot of different things you can do. You might be able to practice hospitality and have somebody over for just a cup of cold water. It doesn't really cost all that much. And you're just going to listen to what they have to say and invest in them. That's giving. There's a lot of different ways to do about this. These are some marks. How do you know if you're handling things well? These would be things that would be tangible evidences that you would see in people's lives. You would probably see that they live within their means, that they're giving people, they're sharing of stuff, they're hospitable. Does that mark us? It marks our God. Does that mark us? 2 resources here. One is Financial Peace, Dave Ramsey. It's an old book, but it's fantastic. If you've never budgeted before, you have no idea about finances and how things work, it's a great book. That's what I read, and that's what I began to structure some of my finances after, and put you on a cash-only system, which is really weird because nobody does cash-only now, and you confuse all the cashiers. You're like, okay, so it's $16.47, and you give them a 20, and they're like, they don't know how to handle that. So brush up on your math skills. That's okay. But I encourage you that there's other resources than that, but that was a book that really mattered and impacted my life in a great way. And then the other one is just a blank little notebook. If you're sitting there and I have no idea where to start with budgeting, I challenge you to do this. Take a month, go down to the dollar store, get yourself a little notebook and a little pen and take it everywhere you go and record every expense you make. And it's pretty incredible. When you do this, you're like, man, I'm thirsty. It's break time, going to the Coke machine. And you're like, hold on, it's $1.25. If I spend it, I got to write it down. Man, water's fine. You begin to make these decisions because you know there's some accountability in here. And as you do that, you begin to see like, oh, wow, is this... And there's nothing wrong with having a Coke and a smile. I'm not saying that, but you begin to think before you spend. I challenge us to be men and women who would be so different than the rest of the world, that it would be so evident that we are underneath blue and not underneath green. Money is not evil. The love and worship of it is. We are stewards. God is the owner. Know what's been entrusted to you. Know the owner's heart. Allocate resources accordingly. Challenge here for the week. Do you need to realign your views? Do I need to realign my views with God? Do I really just need to sit there and be like, I need to be still. I need to create space in my schedule to be still and be like, God, really, is how I spend money, is it how you would spend the money you've entrusted to me? Other thing here is pray for wisdom and courage to face money. It's scary. It really is. I've talked to several people. They're like, I know I need a budget, but I won't. But the funny thing is when you get through the ugly part up front, when you're like, well, this is how much debt I have, and here's my plan of escape, and you kind of get through all this, and it's like you're in the garden, and you just realize you're naked, and you're just like, oh, I don't love it. But as you go through that painful time on the other end, you're like, I have a plan, and there's hope. And you move from darkness to light. Challenge you, create a budget. If you don't have a budget, create a budget and watch your life be transformed. And when you make that budget, please think about more than just yourself. When you're sitting there going, okay, after I've covered utilities, after I've covered rent, after I've covered my car payment, after I've covered all the necessities, and now I've got $20 left over, is it going to be for my Netflix subscription that is not a necessity? It's not. They feel like it, it's not. You have friends, go use their Netflix. I'm not advocating you take their password and log in. Go to their place, share the Netflix that way. Anyway, so begin to think with that disposable income, God, what would you have me do with this? What would you have me do? Oh, I only have a nickel left over at the end. Who cares about that? Lots of people do. It's not yours, it's his. I thought about this. Because all of us would say, we all say this, right? I'm underpaid, I'm overworked. Everybody says that. I just need a raise. I'm underpaid, I'm overworked. Okay, we all are. Woo! But I guarantee you, if I told you, hey, between now and the end of the year, if you could save up $500, I'll give you $1 million. All yours. If I said that, I don't care how little money you had, you'd be like, whoa, let's see here. We got 14 weeks. How does that divide? So that's roughly about $73 a week that I need to save. Let me see here. How can I do this? Okay, I go out to eat. I have lunch out to eat every day of the week. I'm going to pack my lunch, and holy smokes, for the price of 2 meals, I can feed myself for 5 days. Whoo, I just saved $15 a week. Okay. Oh, actually, no, that's $30 because it's usually 10. Oh, awesome. And those times I go out, if I don't get the soda, that saves an extra $2.50. Yes! And all of a sudden, you're sitting there, and you're coming up December 31st, and you're like, come on, pay up, Todd. You could easily do that. There's always room in a budget where we can trim and cut. It's just, are we willing to? Would we have that same zeal and fervor towards trying to save $500 if it was, man, we want to dig a well so people can have clean drinking water? Man, can you imagine if we all even set the goal halfway there? We all saved up $250. We showed up at the very last junction of the year, and we said, we want God to do something great. We've saved up $250. We went without. Here it is. God, what do you want to do with this? Can you imagine the blessing that would be? Let's pray.